Hello, 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 and welcome to another night of empowerment. Hour. We are glad to have you here joining us wherever you are, whatever part of the world you're from. Thank you for being here. We're excited. We have our co-host, we have our guest speaker, and I'm sure that you all are supposed to be loving this topic. Get your budget right. How many of us are flustered when it comes down to a budget? Sometimes the budget work this week, next week we try to stick to it, but it doesn't work. So we are going to get a lot of tips tonight, and I am excited to be here. And we have our guest speaker, Baldwin Dyce. He's a banker, he's an advisor. I've known him for a long time. He is also married. So, ladies, I'm sorry he's gone already. Men, I know you're going to be here. You need some budgeting tips also. So, what I need you to do is just get your little notepads, get your little pens so that you can take some notes because we're going to be getting right into it. And I know that he's excited to share his expertise in this area. And at this time, I just want to also welcome my co-host and Baldwin Dyce, Prophetess Wonder and Baldwin Dyce to the platform at this time. So you will see all of us at this time.
Hello.
Hello, hello, hello,
Hello.
hello, hello, hello. And so I know Prophetess Wonder want to say hi, so she's going to do a quick hi to every one of you. So.
Yes, welcome, Mr. Baldwin Dyce. I'm so happy you're here today because I'm one of the persons that suffer from that. I always make a budget and I don't stick to a budget. So this is going to help a lot of people, those that procrastinate, saying they're going to have a set budget, and they don't fall through. Today's the day for them to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I want to just let the platform go to you as quickly as you can. So wherever you are, ladies and gentlemen, invite your friend as we go into Get That Budget Right with our guest speaker, Baldwin Dyce.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Prophet Reynolds. It's an absolute pleasure for me to be here tonight to talk to you a little bit about it. It is one of my favorite topics, and for those of you out there who feels like you struggle with budgeting, don't feel too bad because the last statistics I saw said that only about 33% of folks in the United States, at least, actually keep a budget. So, you're not alone if you're among the majority who actually struggle to try to get it right. And, I thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Yes, please grab your pen and paper. I hope that by the time we're through tonight, you'll walk away with some tips or some ideas, even if you were somebody who were keeping a budget already, on how to be very effective at keeping a budget. And let's see how it goes. So I'm going to share my screen with you. I do have a PowerPoint slide that I want to share with you here. Let's see. And hopefully everybody is able to see my screen. All right, is everybody able to see the screen? All right. So get that budget right. Before we start talking about, getting the budget right, can you see my screen?
No.
Huh. Just want to make sure. Still working on it. How about now? Oops. Any better?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So I wanted to start off, of course, by telling you a little bit about myself. again, on the personal side, yes, I just happen to be the husband of Minister Alicia Dyce, who's also a part of this church, and she's with our two beautiful daughters, Crystal, who, by the way, just turned 18 last weekend. Yes, guys, I'm watching. And of course, we got little Mia here, who is 3 years old, going on 16, but the joy of all of our lives. On the professional side, as Prophetess mentioned earlier, I have been a banker for almost 30 years now. It's a career that I fell into. The idea of just helping folks with their finances just intrigued me, trying to find solution to meet folks' financial needs. So it's something that I've enjoyed doing. I currently work for Truist Bank here in the United States. Truist is a fairly new bank. It's actually a merger of SunTrust and BB&T, Branch Banking and Trust. I worked for SunTrust and been working there for about 8 years, and I recently switched over to BB&T, but eventually we will be the same bank. I'm a vice president and a branch leader, which means not only do I give advice to clients, but I do lead a team of bankers who do the same thing I do. I coach and train them to just help folks with their financial needs. We are in just really tough times right now with this pandemic, and folks losing their jobs, and everybody asking for answers and seeking guidance. And, so that's really what we do. And we're just blessed that we have the ability to do this for folks. And I did mention that a primary goal of my job is just to give clients peace of mind. If you can have peace of mind regarding your finances, then it's just one more thing out of the way for you to just enjoy life, because that's what we're here to do, just to try to enjoy life. So what exactly is a budget? Everybody says, oh, I want to do a budget. I want to keep a budget. Well, it's very simple. It's a financial plan. It's a spending plan. Okay. And I like to write right next to that, notice I said that, if you fail to plan, then you can pretty much plan to fail. And this doesn't apply to just finances, but just in all aspects of life about planning. It is a financial plan. It is a spending plan. And this is something you do for a set period of time, whether you do it monthly, like I do mine monthly. I keep my binder and my files, and some folks do it annually. This is mainly organizations that tend to go that route, but for the majority of us who do personal budgeting, it's usually monthly, and it includes things like our income, our expenses, and our savings. And I know that's one of the most important part of the budget that we're going to talk about tonight too, that a lot of us tend to overlook when we're talking about budgeting. And it's an estimation, so it's something that should be flexible enough for you to be able to reevaluate as your circumstances change throughout the month. Budgeting, of course, a budget is used by us as individuals. It's used by groups, businesses, churches, and of course the government. You and I know, if you are going to emulate anyone who does a budget, I don't know if the government's the right person to use for that purpose, because I think before I was born until now, you have been hearing governments trying to balance the budget with absolutely no success. So I don't know if they're the best example of what an ideal budget should be. So why keep a budget? Well, the main thing is that it does keep spending under control, because if you know what you have and you have everything apportioned out, then you know that you can only spend, within certain limits. And again, this is not a wall. This is really a mindset, because you will still have access to your money, so the idea is just control and discipline, to not tap into the funds that you set aside for specific purposes. And another great reason for having a budget is it does help us have a plan for us and our loved ones' future. You want to set money aside, maybe for insurance or for retirement, etc. It's great to have this as a plan that you can work out. Another great reason to have a budget is it does open our eyes to our spending habit, especially when you really decide to start following your budget and you realize, wow, I do shop a lot, or maybe I need to start putting away some of these credit cards, or hide some more of these money away from myself. And another reason is to grow a financial portfolio. You can start a budget with a little in savings, which over time grows so much that you start to diversify, you start to invest in other areas to make money on top of your money. And this is all possible because of the discipline you gain from having a budget. And of course, last but not least, peace of mind. I mentioned it earlier, when everything is under control, when the finances is under control, it just makes for a happier person. Now, what does the Bible say about budgeting? It does talk about budgeting. We think as Christians that, maybe budgeting is something that, like I said, governments do, businesses do. Christians are called to. It's a matter of, again, discipline. It's a matter of being wise. To strategize. I look at some of them that I posted here. 1 Corinthians 16:2 mentioned that it is wise to set aside money for future expenses, and you can look it up. I'm not going to read all of them, but Proverb 21:20, budgeting does help us become financially free. One of my favorite, which I'm going to pause to read, which is Luke 14:28-30, that talks about creating a plan to achieve a financial goal. So just in case you don't think the Bible does talk about this, it says it right here. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Verse 28. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? For if you lay the foundation and are not able to finish it, then everyone who sees it will ridicule you, saying, this person began to build and wasn't able to finish. So the Bible does call us to be disciplined with our money, to spend wisely, save wisely, and have a plan in place. And I did glance at Ephesians 5:15-16 that talk about, we have to be careful. We can't be unwise because of the times that we're living in, especially this time right now with COVID. So if you choose to be among the 73 or so percent of folks who choose not to budget, what are the consequences? Some of them you may not see, except you're stressed financially and you don't know why. It could very well be because of not budgeting. And I know I get pushback from time to time from clients that says, well, it's not really a matter of budgeting. It's just the expenses are more than the income. But you would still be surprised that budgeting does help to even get expenses under control, because you will see as I tap into it a little bit later on about how you can automate, you can set up a plan to try to pay down debt as much as possible in a timely fashion. Of course, we want to pay it down to zero. So consequences, of course, the obvious one is less control over your finances, overspending. I'm human too. We have all had the time when you got your paycheck and you buy stuff for your household, or you may go a little shopping, I know, and it's not just the ladies, the guys do it too. Minister Dyce won't hesitate to tell you how many times she cringed when I mentioned Costco or Best Buy on my way home from work. But you tend to overspend when you don't have a plan. And then when the time comes for the very important bills to be paid, you're realizing, oh no, I am short. And then that can spiral into a lot of other things. Overdrawn accounts at the bank that's charging an arm and a leg for, one item going in overdraft. So, that's one really bad consequence. Going into debt. or deeper into debt. Because we made the mistake of overspending, and now we don't have any more funds to buy food for the house, so we turn to the credit card, and then the credit card digs us into a hole. And everybody know here in the United States, credit card interest rates are very high, very, very high. So, if we cannot pay the full balance off, and this is how credit card companies make their money, right? They don't want you to pay the full balance off. They want you to pay the minimum balance. And the next thing you know, it's taking years and years and years. I think they say the average credit card could take you maybe up to 18 years or so to pay off if you are paying minimum balance only. Just think about that. So, that's a trap of just not having a budget. Not knowing when it stops, it stops. The other consequence of not budgeting is just the lack of having a savings plan, or the lack of savings, because we spend so much, the money is done, and there is no funds left to do anything else. So, that can just be a really, really, really bad headache for us. And then the really, really harsh one that I've seen so many times in my career is just not being able to respond to unexpected emergencies. I saw statistics once at my work where we were reviewing, we were talking about debt. And, that was really a harsh reality for me. And it was years ago when they said that the average, about 70% of Americans today don't have $1,000 set aside in a savings account for an emergency, regardless of their income. And that's the part that really got me. As a banker, I've seen clients that drive up in beautiful Mercedes Benzes to ask me if I could refund an overdraft fee, and I always have to do a double take. The 70% of us that don't have at least $1,000 set aside for an emergency. So that's also another reason why it is so important for us to make sure we have a budget. And of course, less financial contentment because you're very unhappy. So just based on what I just said about, 70% of Americans, looking at this bar chart, it's almost reflects the reality of folks who don't have a budget. When you look at it and you think, oh my goodness, 40% of my pay goes to rent or mortgage or other household bills, and then I got 30% trying to pay off credit cards and car loans and personal loans and student loans, and then there's barely any savings, if any at all. Retirement, that 6% really represents what your employer, if you're employed, would be putting aside for you, because you're not able to contribute any because you just don't make enough to try to save for retirement, which is really a bad idea. It's a great thing to set aside funds, especially here in the United States where that is something pre-tax. Of course, we know we can't escape taxes. I'm probably modest saying 15%. I know for a lot of you it feels like a lot more than 15% that comes out. And then your daily spending is 5% because you're resorting to using your debt to do your spending because you have run out of cash. So let's get rid of this and let's try to imagine what an ideal budget would look like. And these numbers I took from a study that was done by a university recently, that ideally this is what your budget should look like. And as I go through the spectrum, I'll actually list out the labels. I won't mention colors because those who know me well enough know I struggle with colors, but maybe it's a guy thing. But ideally, you don't want to spend more than 28% of your income in housing. And when I say your income, I could be talking about whether it's with your spouse or with a roommate or other loved ones. You don't want to spend more than 28% of that on housing. Debt, you should really try to keep down to at least 8% of your income. Retirement, 10% is a good sweet spot. I try to push myself to 12 to 15% if I can, my 401k, knowing that my employer is going to add to that. 10% goes to savings. And of course, like I said, you can't escape the tax that has to be paid. And when you think about daily spending, that 20% should be representative of your actual cash and not necessarily credit. This is what an ideal budget would look like. And this is what you should get yourself on the path to try to get. Now, folks may say, I'm nowhere near here. It's fine. It's just great to start the race to finish it. You can't be at the starting block saying, I'm not going to race because I'm not going to finish the race. So we have to start somewhere. If it's a matter of trying to pay down debt, then get a plan. You can make a budget that's a plan to pay down debt. So that's a nice place to start. I threw in here an example. It's more or less like a template, because quite frankly, your budget, you don't have to be a techno whiz to do it. This is me going above and beyond, looking at, well, I wonder, when I created this template, I want to see what each item that I pay or save, what percentage of my overall expenses is being paid up to mortgage, or what percentage of my overall expenses is coming out of my income. What do I have left over to save when all is said and done? So this really is a sample. Again, you don't have to be a whiz. A budget can be done with a calculator and a nice journal. If that's something you have, just go monthly and just write everything down. I like to separate my budget, starting with income and then expenses. And if you want to get really ambitious, you can do variable expenses. I love just to go through each item. And yes, it is very important that you leave nothing out. So you may think, well, I only pay $50 a month for my home security. If you have that, put it on there. Put it on there. The whole goal of doing your budget is, when it is done, you should have no cash left over. Sounds scary, but there's more to it than saying no cash left over. That's a goal of a budget. So let's say spouses, one makes $1,000 a month, the next one makes $3,500, for a total of $4,500. How are we going to sit down together and sort this out and have a plan in place? And so, under your monthly expenses, I have my fixed. And again, it's not set in stone. Some folks may say, for example, tithing and offering might not be fixed, because depending on how you're paid, if you are paid on commission, then your income might fluctuate. So your tithe and offering may fluctuate. But then things like your mortgage, your auto loan, insurance, etc., those are usually pretty fixed expenses. Now, in my world, where you see other fixed expenses, I have some colleagues that would just write savings there, and I put savings as an expense. It forces me to think that I need to put money aside. So other fixed expenses could just be savings, and treat it as an expense because you feel obligated to pay it. You feel obligated to put that $300 and or whatever it is aside. It doesn't have to be $300. I remember a story of a client of mine a few years ago that we talked about setting aside money in a savings account, and he had the same excuse like many of us, right? I can barely pay my bills each month. I can't afford to put aside money. And I said, listen, a savings account, a lot of banks now are removing the restriction of you have to have a certain minimum balance with some stipulations. Why don't you put even $10 a week in your savings account? And I remember this gentleman, it was probably a few months later, who came to thank me because he had a flat tire. Who would have thunk it? A flat tire that cost him maybe a couple of $100, and he wasn't sure where the money was. Maxed out credit cards, etc. But then he remembered that he had started putting aside his little $10 a week. And surely enough, there was enough money in his savings account to buy a new tire. So you never know when that money may come in handy. It's never too little. $5, $10, it doesn't matter what it is, put it aside. We mentioned having emergency funds. That was indeed an emergency fund for this gentleman, and he was very thankful. I'm pretty sure he's putting aside a lot more now after that experience. And then we talk about the variable expenses, which is food that fluctuates, clothing. Personally, that's not really a huge expense for me per se. I'll probably wear the same clothes for as long as I can. It doesn't matter. But I know, especially a lot of you ladies and a lot of you gents too, not going to discriminate. You love your clothes and you love your fashion and, you love to shop. That's probably one of the catch areas that you want to be careful of. Transportation, gas, fare for public transport, etc. And then I threw in an ugly one there, which is a credit card, and I made that a really high number on this example because sadly enough, that's where a lot of us, will get stuck, especially here in the United States. The credit card debt is just substantial. And, I could do this in another forum, but you have to come up with a strategy to try to pay down that credit card debt. So that $1,000, you may have 3 credit cards. You want to focus on trying to, strategically pay down those 3 credit cards. So you set that aside. And, an optimistic way to look at it is if I say I'm going to pay this credit card off in 3 years, that will be an extra $1,000 that will go towards my savings fund, my peace of mind, my retirement, etc. And in the end, when you do this budget, cash on hand is what you want to see. If you see that there's a deficit, then we may need to rework this. And again, unfortunately, a lot of times for many of us, that is in fact a struggle. But again, you just got to start somewhere. The goal is to get to the finish line. So this is just one example of what a budget could look like. Again, I have the percentages there on the side. It's not necessary. I've seen budgets where folks will have budgeted expenses and savings, and then the next column is going to be actual. So at the end of the month, it's a nice way to check to see how well you behaved with regards to following your budget. So, there are different ways to do it. So this is what I'm trying to say. So, tips for success when it comes to a budget. I love to say this to my clients, and it's something I try to do myself. Pay yourself first. So and don't misunderstand me. You always want to do your tithes and offering first, but when it comes to your money, you work very hard for your money. You earn your money. You have to set aside something for you. Set a goal in motion. It could be, I want to take a trip this summer to go look at the Ark. I know I'm on the tab for that one, but you want to take a nice vacation. You want to get away. You want to do something. Set aside money for yourself. And I'll give you some more tips about how best to do that shortly. I mentioned earlier, budget every dollar. Whatever is left over when you do your budget on my previous slide, you should have somewhere to put those funds. And maybe one day it's going to be 1 month. It may be, I'm going to treat myself to something with this extra money. Or, I'm going to give my money to someone. I'm going to give to charity. I'm going to help somebody, help a family member, etc. But budget every dollar. You should not have anything hanging, because then that just leads to more temptation. Do your budgeting together. It's encouraged. It's encouraged if you're married, especially, sit down with your spouse, look at your income, look at your debt, look at the bills, and just make a decision about how you're going to conquer the mountain, one step at a time. And I like to say too, something I like to say to my clients: if you're single, if it's just you and you're working hard and you're doing your own budget, find somebody who you can trust to hold you accountable. Because nobody's watching, so we might be a little tempted to borrow a little $100 or something here to go do something. Find somebody who can hold you accountable. At the end of the month, if you do one of those budgets where you compare what you actually did to what you had set as your budget, somebody can look over it to say, well, great job, keep it up. So that's a great idea too. Be flexible. Things can happen throughout the month, and you may have to make adjustments where necessary. So maybe you are planning for this particular month to pay more than the minimum balance on this one credit card, but something came up and you have to cut back a little bit. So you're going to pay minimum balance this month. It's not the end of the world. So, just don't be too hard on yourself and feeling like you have failed. It's going to happen. It's just human nature. And like I said, it's okay to make mistakes. Like in everything we do in our walk with God, it doesn't matter what it is. We're going to make mistakes. The idea is that we just don't stay stuck in it. So just learn from the mistake, pick yourself up, just remind yourself you're human, and just move on. Okay, just move on. Try again. Keep trying until you're successful. So I talked earlier about saving, which is a big deal. I don't really see a lot of my savings per se, other than my emergency savings, because I put a lot of my savings where I can't touch it, like a retirement plan, for example. I take a chunk of my paycheck and I send it over to my retirement plan. You can touch it, but it's very hard to get to it, and the consequences of getting to it too soon, the tax consequences, the penalties, a deterrent. So you don't want to touch that. So that's one great way of trying to save some money, or having a savings plan, and that's more for the long term than for the short term. The other thing I've stumbled into a lot with my clients, and I have to talk through this. It's okay to have multiple savings accounts. Most banks nowadays want your business, so they're not going to tell you, oh, you're only limited to one savings account. So, when you start to make your plans about what you want to do, whether you're saving for your child's college, expenses, or you're saving up for a down payment for a car, or whatever it is, it doesn't have to be in the same savings account, because then that can cause confusion. You're looking at the balance and you have to mentally calculate what should be set aside for that and what should have been for that. So, keep multiple savings accounts. It's okay to do that. Another big one that I always encourage, like I mentioned in my story earlier, set up your automatic money transfers. Make it come out, whatever you're saving, whatever you're putting in a savings account, whatever you're putting towards retirement, it shouldn't be something that you have to physically have to do every month. It's okay to just have it come out of your pay and go there directly. You don't see it. It wouldn't cause any temptation. Or again, most banks, every bank that I've ever worked for has an automatic plan. It costs absolutely nothing to put in there for you to set up an automatic plan. Side note though, the great thing about having a savings account in a bank too is that you don't want to try to take that money out too often, because then that's when the bank will penalize you. So there is another deterrent or motivation to try to leave your money in savings. Most banks will tell you, hey, if you are tapping into this account more than 6 times or whatever amount of times per month, we're going to charge you for doing it. So you can tell yourself, well, I guess I can't touch this money unless I absolutely need to take out all of it. Another one, I've heard this all my life, from the day I lived in Jamaica until I'm here in this country. I'm still hearing it. I don't put all my eggs in one basket. And folks it's coming from somewhere. I know here in the United States, the idea of that stemmed from the Great Depression, where banks went under and folks were losing money. So they decided to spread their money around so that they can, get to some if some bank fails. It's hardly likely that that's going to happen today. Banks do fail nowadays, but there's always the bigger bank on the side just ready to take over that smaller bank. So money is pretty safe. The federal deposit, the FDIC, we like to call it, they insure money. So, up to $250,000, and that's a whole complex equation. So it can go way above and beyond $250,000. So in other words, if the bank fail, you're more than likely going to get your money back. So and again, the reason I mentioned this is that you could have your checking account here, but then because of fear that you might spend your money, or you put your savings account in a bank way across the other side of the county. You can set it up with the bank to not let you see the funds online, or give you a paper statement each month, etc. So you don't have easy access. You have to get up and actually go to the bank to get it. But you can save yourself some gas having to drive, or public transport costs, having to travel from bank A to bank B to try to access your funds. It's just one other way to simplify things and to have more money to set aside to save. And of course, I did mention that you will save a lot of time by not having to manually be transferring funds every single month. The other idea of setting up an automated plan too is it makes your goal more realistic. You can actually see it happening behind the scenes as your savings begin to grow, and it's just a really exciting feeling when you get to that place where I finally have the money saved up to do this. That one thing I wanted to do. Years ago, we used to have a Christmas club fund, savings fund. Most banks, I think credit unions here do have them still. I know some banks in Jamaica still have them, where you set your goal, and your goal is, well, I want to go to Jamaica for Christmas, or I want to be able to buy my loved ones some gifts, but I don't want to be maxing out credit cards trying to do so. So those are some of the accounts where you can save, get to the goal, use your funds up, and just restart it without any penalty or having to close the account out. So finally, these are just some resources that I like to use. Again, you are not obligated to use these. I'm not doing paid advertisement for any of these websites, but a lot of these are free. And what you can do is check out some of the websites on there. You can even Google budget resources online, and you will see websites. Of course, everybody is skittish about the internet and the potential for fraud and scam, etc. So you always want to be careful not to put your personal information online. But mint.com is a very reputable one, as well as Quicken and NerdWallet. Those are the ones I keep hearing over and again. Your bank may also have resources online. My bank, SunTrust, actually has a website called onup.com, and that's one that talks about financial confidence and peace of mind, etc. And a lot of our clients go there, and they get advice on getting out of debt, having a budget, etc. And those are free sites. So there's just a plethora of resources out there that you can use to do your budget. Microsoft Excel, that was the example I just showed you, with not much skill, or potentially having a teenager in the house. For us older folks, they can actually help us with setting up the formulas to where you basically can just go in and enter amounts and watch them self-calculate, and it's some beautiful thing. It's magical. I do have background in Excel too, so it's not really an issue for me to go create my own formulas and do my own budget. And of course, there's always the old school method. It's my temptation, one of my cheat methods. I love actually taking my pen and paper and have my little journal at the beginning of the month, and I start to write out my budget for the month and make my plan, and call Minister Alicia in and show her the budget and what the bills that we got to pay and everything. That's usually is my go-to plan. But you don't have to feel restricted. A budget is just an absolutely simple thing to do. The hard part is not in creating the budget. The challenge is in actually sticking to the budget. And, so that is what I would encourage everybody to do. Just pray through this, that you will develop the discipline to just be able to make your budget, stick to your budget, and just watch the peace that it will bring to you. I like this joke because it's almost like I was saying earlier about government. There's always, when we try to do a budget, a lot of expenses that just seem to come from nowhere and just something that just seem to be out of control. So we don't want a budget where we are having a lot of unknowns. The famous saying is, wow, my paycheck is done and I didn't even know what I spent it on. So we don't want to fall into that trap. So I really do hope that I was able to share some tips and you got some takeaways from my little talk tonight. And, with that, I am happy to answer any questions. All right.
Yes. Hello. When you mentioned the savings in the bank, I remember a long time ago that and I'm sure they do it now, what you said about, we had the holiday club, we had all these different clubs that you could put your money into, and people would just put in $10, $15, but at the end of the year, they had money to spend on their Christmas gifts. Yes. So that was an amazing tip. Yes. Because sometimes people think they don't have, because they make a little money, or they have to change the mindset. And whatever it is, just put $2, $5, and it adds up. At the end of the year, you will have those funds needed to enjoy a vacation or enjoy, Christmas gifts.
Absolutely. And you always want to have it as a goal too. Yes. My goal is to have $1,000 by X. Yes. And then just set it and forget it, as they say.
Absolutely.
Ironically, I was looking at that budget that you created, that budget chart, and that's fine. That's exactly how I do my budget. The only thing is that I've never categorized it as fixed, but I always put it in order of what is always being the recurring bills. Ones that are always consistent. But I like the idea that it's showing it's in the category of fixed. And I have one side that I have it's called savings, and I have the other side that I call miscellaneous. And I stick miscellaneous in one, and I stick the fixed, and I have my tithes first and my mortgage after the same way, and everything just like that. I was ironically, I've never seen that before, but instinct just told me that I've always done it like that, and I've been doing it for years. And what I like the idea about, by the way, if that template is available, can you send it? Because I know people are going to be asking us for the template. Just send that template so that we can just forward it to whoever is asking. And one of the things I like is that you said, pay yourself first. It's true. We always forget to pay yourself first. But a question that I want to ask you, because you said you're putting it in savings. Now you mentioned the bank. And I have found I remember putting my money, I put something on CD in MCU for a year, and it only literally earned, it's $1,000, and it only earned $2.50. It was whatever, 25 cents or something, 25. At first I thought it was 25%, out of 100. And then I didn't realize it was, So when I was, what? So I found another strategy, and that is when you have your retirement account or stuff, in your retirement account, they have them all invest your money all. To some people, when they look at that, they might say, but hold on, if I have my money in an investment bank and they invest my money instead of it being in the regular savings account, at least on a daily basis, I might make $1. And if I lose, I might lose $1, but the next day I might make $6. Now think of what they earn in that one day compared to what they earn in a year. So probably I'm just saying, do you suggest that if people think that the savings account that they're using is just like, because by the time you think of it, you're going to be saving, saving, saving. And that's why a lot of people start something like self-directed IRAs or something like that, so that they can have the money working for them in that. So do you think that's a good idea for someone to do, instead of like setting aside the money within just a savings account that at the end of the year when you look, there's nothing in there, like really but $1? What idea do you think that's what suggestion would you make concerning that?
Okay. When it comes to savings account, the guidance I like to give my clients is that you want to categorize your savings. You know, just like you'd have the short-term debt and the long-term debt, as a short-term savings and the long-term savings. Now, my clients are usually taken aback when I do a rough calculation of, so here's how much you're going to make on your $1,000 in 12 months. And they said, what? I'm going to tie my money up for that. I usually say, well, if you're putting your funds in a savings account in a bank, you are not putting it in there to make money. You really are not. This is definitely funds you're setting aside. Now, if there are other self-directed or managed funds out there that can give you better returns, I would definitely say put it in there. Except, you know, you want to make sure that there are no consequences when you go to pull your money back out, if you need to have some funds. And you know, we always love to say the higher the interest rate, the greater the risk. You know, so if someone is not savvy in terms of investing in savings in the market, etc., first thing I would say is find a financial advisor to get some advice. There are lots of tools online for those of us who, you know, have the ability, the knack to try this. But yes, by all means, if there is an entity out there that can offer you better bang for your buck, of course that's where you want to put your money. You know, but what I'm really talking about when I talk about a budget, if you recall earlier, I said you want to start your savings, and as you build and you have enough funds, then you can start to diversify that savings. And that's what I do with my retirement. That's what I like to call my investment, because I pull up my retirement and I can go through and select where I want my money invested, and I can see the returns, 15%, etc., coming back, and that's exciting, right? But again, you know, it's an emergency fund. It's something you're going to use somewhere short term more than long term, and as it grows, definitely try to find other ways of making money, because guess what? The bank's making money off you.
And those are the keywords. We said 2 keywords. It's either long term or short term. So you have to know which one. If it's long term, then probably go the investment way. If it's short term and you know you're going to need it, like for a rainy day, then you got to just stick to the regular savings. Or you can decide that you're going to diversify if you're built enough that you think it could diversify. And then you have people that are setting the budget aside, but they are thinking about in terms of a little far ahead, like in terms of like, okay, I have children. Probably they're going to go to, I want them to go to college and stuff like that. So they're setting aside, they probably have a little account here, you know, saving for the college, saving and stuff like that. Is it okay then if they're budgeting and they're putting that money to the side, should they put it in that saving account, or should they have another saving account directly for the children? Because I find that people, as you say, people will put it in there for savings, but something always come up and somebody has to be like, okay, I need to go pull from here and borrow from here. So it's never going to be consistent. So do you suggest they have savings account for the children within their budget? So when they're budgeting, they know that every time they get their pay, a little $10 go to Johnny, a little $5 go to Mia, or so. And so, like, do you think that's a part of? Is that supposed to be a part of the budget? That's what I'm asking.
Yes, yes, and again, that's in the category that I say in automation. There, many different states have different options, especially for kids savings account. 529 is one that pops to my mind. I know in Florida, I think it's called Bright Futures. I haven't lived in Florida in a few years, but I know in Florida, I think they have Bright Futures, and these are savings entities that you set up that's automatically taken out of your account or out of your paycheck, so you really don't see it. It's a great idea to have something like this. I know there may be some among us who may disagree. I met an accountant once who told me that he actually kept the money in a savings account. And when his kids turned 18, there was enough money in there for him to buy rental property. That's really thinking outside the box. And then the funds from that, would be used to pay down their college funds. So, there are different ways just to think outside the box and go about it. But as a standard, absolutely. You want to find, when it comes to your kids' college fund, you want to find something that's protected, that's probably government backed, that's going to ensure that the kids have the funds there when it's time when they need it.
So the money that's coming out of their pay, like if it's automatic, should they record that in their budget? Because you said don't leave anything out.
Absolutely. I would definitely want that recorded, that each month this is what is going.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is there when you budget for the children, let's say for the college fund, is this the taxes on that? Is there any tax implication if you take the money out on the children's account and stuff like that?
I always know when I get asked a question because I always give a blank answer. Consult your tax professional, but no.
Okay.
I believe there are. There may be consequences.
Okay.
You're taking the funds out, yeah. But there could also be ways to get around it. If it's an emergency and you need the funds out, I'm sure there are ways to get around that too.
Now, when someone comes to a financial advisor, what should they be looking for in that person that they come into?
Oh, I like that question. You want to find sincerity. You want to find somebody who appears to genuinely care about you and your finances. You absolutely do not want someone who immediately starts talking to you about accounts and products and services, because chances are, they're about goals on their side. They're not necessarily for you. So look for someone who wants to take the time to get to understand you and your financial needs first. And and I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a branch manager, but I work very, very closely with financial advisors. I have sat in on many of the conversations with prospects and seen them actually invest with these financial advisors. And the one thing I've always noticed is that first meeting, even if it's an hour or so, by the time it's over, I know so much about that person. It's almost like I'm their family. So, they took the time to care about exactly what your goals are and what you're trying to accomplish before they start to tell you, oh, give me your money and let me do something with it.
So I like the fact that you have, when you have that budget, what do you call that, budget checklist, that monthly budget thing that you said we should have an estimated expenses, and then the actual expenses. And I think that is what some people need, because some of the times what they do is just put what they actually use. And so they're neither looking at whether they went over or if they went under or if they went below their budget or stuff like that. You have some people, they don't use a budget at all. It's just, I get paid, I just do whatever I need to do, and I wait until the next paycheck. Another person will budget, but they might not be budgeting correctly. They might just be writing down, I pay this. They make sure they record everything that they pay, but they have never really categorized it. They've never really looked at it from the point of view that I should estimate what I'm going to pay monthly, because I know what it usually looks like on a monthly basis, and then I can actually look at the actual. So let me ask you a question. When they estimate and then they do the actual, is it to show whether or not not only did they go meet the budget, or is it actually to show that they are budgeting correctly in terms of, like, they are not overspending?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if you're getting what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know, right?
It's more, I would say it's more accountability. Yeah,
Accountability.
it's more accountability.
Yes.
Or a pat yourself on the shoulder. Don't beat yourself up if at the end of the month you
Right.
realize, oh my goodness, I budgeted for $1,000, but I only used 800. You know, I know for some people are like shopping time or or treat myself to something. But yeah, the goal is to try to get them as closely aligned as possible. And it's not really a matter of poor budgeting, because I did indicate earlier, things can happen. Something can pop up in the middle of the month and you didn't even realize it. You know, a loved one called you because some emergency happened and you got to send money for them. And just the kindness of your heart, you did it. But then when you go to check your budget at the end of the month, wait a minute, why am I off? You know, so things can happen, and which is also one of the reasons why I say don't be hard on yourself. You know, we're human. Just keep at it as much as you can, and just stay the course.
Okay. I love the fact that this was a wonderful session. And I'm ironically, I was like, I don't see a lot of people on the platform. I think people don't like to plan, because usually they're here. I mean, some are going to watch it later, but usually they are. I guess a lot of people don't budget. That's what I'm saying. A lot of people don't budget. So it's very important for us to do that. But I really want to thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us. Thank you for being, this is something that we need. Remember to send us that template. There are people that are asking for the template already. So you can send that. Somebody asked a question. Somebody was asking a question about a Roth IRA or something like that. I don't know what they wanted to know about it in terms of, because we were talking about that information. But if they need to speak with you, like you said, you're not a financial advisor in that way, but you could probably redirect them to someone. So please inbox or text or call the number that you see running across the screen, and then we will forward your information to Baldwin Dyce, who has been a good help tonight, helping us to learn how to get that budget right. So we're thankful that each of you joined us on the platform today. And I want to say thank you to my co-host, Prophetess Wonder. And I want to thank you, Baldwin Dyce, for giving us such powerful information. And if you have missed the broadcast, or if you weren't here in the broadcast, then do a replay, share this with your friends and family, and join us next week for another time in Empowerment Hour. Next week, it's going to be the young people. It's going to be how to serve God in your young years. That means we're looking at the children, the ones who are in the teens, the ones who are in the elementary school. Children are going to be on the platform, and they're going to talk about how important it is to serve God while they are young, and at the same time the challenges that they're facing as young people in serving God. So we want to thank all of you, and we want to say bye, and God bless you, and see you next week. Thank you for watching.